Welcome to Classes in Session, presented by UI Health. I'm Doug Glanville. There is a new billionaire class that has entered the conversation, the athlete, a blend of talent demonstrated through dominance on the field and value in what they can bring to any enterprise. They're taking career earnings and turning themselves into plutocrats, money-making machines no matter what the market. They can sell high and buy low, and most importantly, they can create their own timing because they can wait. Wait for the right investor, the right partnership, the right trends. Today, we celebrate the tight spiral they throw or the way they dribble in traffic, but now we absorb their products into our consciousness. They are the faces of the game and faces on our sneakers. We will discuss the new entrants into the Billionaires Club, athletes. We will learn from someone who is investing and building his own post-career enterprise, longtime Major League Baseball player Mark Teixeira. We will also hear from Matt Craig, Forbes writer of the insightful column, Sports Money. Let's get to class. $1 billion. B as in boy. It has a 1 and 9 zeros. A number that is a mark of unimaginable wealth for a company, let alone an individual. A number that is more than the GDP of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or for those Hamilton the musical fans, St. Kitts and the small island where Hamilton grew up, Nevis. This level of wealth is now being reached by a number of high-profile athletes, many of which are still competing in their arenas, some of which reached it even when their playing days did not earn them the mind-boggling contracts of today. Magic Johnson's first shoe deal was for $100,000 a year with Converse. LeBron James' first deal in 2003 was for $90 million. And now his shoe deal is worth reportedly $500 million. He's halfway there. But credit is deserved as these athletes have adeptly branched out into the entrepreneurial space. They're leveraging their on-court brand, expansive networks, super agencies, and insider access to forge deals from anything from Starbucks franchises to interior design companies. Many of the skills that made them elite athletes are translating. The work ethic, the competitive spirit, the goal-oriented mindset. When Shaquille O'Neal dared release a rap album while playing for the Orlando Magic, the critics were everywhere. They claimed it was a distraction, even a gimmick. But today, Shaq sits on a mountain of millions, sponsoring everything from eco-friendly toners to insurance. Times have changed since the album Shaq Fu. Athletes can amplify their message through numerous social media platforms. In fact, they are sought after to amplify the message or product of others. Magic Johnson was seen as a conduit to the Black community, energizing a demographic around coffee drinking to make it cultural. That has value to any business, and they are willing to pay for it. Many athletes are now owning teams, even owning parts of the clothing that they are wearing and promoting. Steph Curry signed a rival guard on the Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox, to his forthcoming apparel and footwear company. They are opponents, but they are also businessmen. Billionaire used to be a term reserved for oil moguls, land-rich empires, and tech gurus. Now we see it in our favorite players while they tee off on the 18th hole. These athletes have found the power to not simply grow their brand, but grow their wealth, and not just by investing traditionally, but through entrepreneurship and partnerships. It takes a ton of work to amass such wealth, but athletes are finding a way and hitting risk head-on and winning countless rewards. They are making history on the field of play through their excellence and dedication, and they are printing money for everyone in their orbit. Our next guest gives us great insight into the combination of sport and money, and he is a columnist for and reporter for Forbes. His column is called Sports Money, very fittingly. So Matt Craig is joining us, and thanks, Matt, for coming along.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Really excited to talk about sports and money together today.
Yes, I like how you combine that, and it's very fitting because we're seeing this climate where athletes are entering the entrepreneurial domain and like never before. And so I guess I just want to start off by the base question of what is exactly happening. It used to be millionaires versus billionaires, and now it's billionaires versus billionaires. You're seeing some huge amounts of success off the field for some of these athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think even a decade ago, it would have seemed impossible and crazy to think that athletes could be considered billionaires. But now Forbes has identified 4 of them and more to come. The four are, and I always think it's a great trivia question to ask people, but the four are Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, who we just named, LeBron James, and Tiger Woods. I think the biggest difference and the biggest reason is player earnings have just skyrocketed. I mean, even since you were playing in the 90s and early 2000s, I looked it up. The highest paid MLB player in 2000 was making $15 million a year. And really, with that money, they've kind of become their own family offices, basically like mini venture capital firms that can invest in or start their own businesses and use their earnings and their celebrity to grow those into really valuable properties. And the other thing that's different is these athletes want to get into business and they want to invest in these companies and grow these companies, which wasn't really the case historically, either because they didn't have the money to do so or they didn't want to do it.
Well, and certainly in the backdrop of that is, I think back to when I played in Orlando, AA for the Cubs, the Orlando Cubs, and Shaquille O'Neal was on the Orlando Magic. And it was a time where, getting into rap music, he created, an album, and he was criticized heavily for being, oh, you're distracting yourself from your craft and you're paid a lot of money to do this. I guess what in your mind culturally shifted where it's much more acceptable for athletes to dabble in so many different things besides the thing that they're kind of known for initially, and that is to play their sport?
Yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily restricted to just sports. I think culturally, as recently as maybe like the 2000s, being seen as a sellout or selling out was just about the worst thing that you could do. And now it seems like, selling out in the sense of partnering with brands or hawking products is kind of like the goal. It used to be that in strikes and sports, fans would side with the teams and call the players greedy, right? And now fan sentiment is more like, go get that bag, make as much money as you can.
And one thing that's always different, I think about my playing days and there's sort of off the field you talk about, but there's also the off season. So what do you see in terms of how, all of a sudden, like you have more time, right, to just be able to, I remember Richie Hebner, my hitting coach, he worked, digging ditches in the off season in the 70s. He had to make money. I guess, what do you see and how those gears have shifted in terms of how these athletes are taking advantage of sort of extra time?
No, absolutely. I wrote a story earlier this summer about Russell Westbrook, and he told me specifically, when my season ends, that's when I go to work. He's very involved in businesses and he really wants to be a billionaire. Guys these days, they have that competitive drive and they have the discipline, that allowed them to become professional athletes, and they can't turn that off. They need an outlet for it.
We continue with our in-depth look at the growing trend of athlete entrepreneurs and hear from former MLB All-Star Mark Teixeira on his plan to join their ranks. Next on Classes in Session with Doug Glanville, presented by UI Health. Welcome back to Classes in Session with Doug Glanville, presented by UI Health, and our conversation with Matt Craig. Well, you wrote a fantastic column about Magic Johnson sort of entering that billionaire club. And I'm curious the key takeaways about how he was able to rise to that level. Now, you're talking about an athlete from an era where, he's making $4 million, but he's not making, 50, 75 million a year as an athlete. And his first shoe deal, as you pointed out, $100,000 on Converse, not big money till then all of a sudden see 9 zeros. So what were your kind of key takeaways to his rise?
I mean, he's a fascinating case to look into because, as you mentioned, and I'll just put dollar figures on it, his entire Lakers career, he made $40 million. And now there's a handful of guys in the NBA making more than that in 1 year. But the secret for him was his smile and his charisma. Every time he got into to a negotiating table with someone, they were always charmed by him and wanted to make a deal happen. So basically, he had to do a lot of joint venture partnerships where he would only put up a little bit of the money and his partners would put up a lot more. And that allowed him to be involved in big business before he had big money. Magic is the first guy that got involved in big business. And a lot of people, including you mentioned Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Dwayne Wade, they've cited him specifically as, we all look to Magic as the guy that showed us that this can be possible. And I mean, really, of course, Michael Jordan had quite an impact a few years later, but Magic, as far as being an actual businessman, is really the example that a lot of these guys have followed.
And one thing that you underscore in your article is about mentorship, right? Is Michael Ovitz, said, okay, I'm going to take him under my wing. So he work with Magic to bring him in all these rooms, these boardrooms and these meetings, and kind of mentoring him. And one thing that I found interesting that he said was about being agnostic in the businesses you choose to kind of partner or invest in. Can you talk about the fact that, Magic in particular is an example of like, I just want to evaluate it through this lens and not necessarily focus on one particular enterprise.
To some degree, that's been the key to his success. I think in a lot of cases, you see athletes getting into these very flashy industries, whether it's, they want to make liquor or produce movies or something. But in terms of building wealth, they aren't always the smartest businesses. Some have been successful, but they aren't always the smartest businesses. And Magic has been successful in a number of industries that you would not associate with ex-athletes, like whether it's real estate, healthcare, or now he owns 60% of a large life insurance company.
Have you gleaned any insight in terms of like, I guess it's the inner circle, or, if you're agnostic, say, in your business and saying, okay, it doesn't matter, I just want a business model that works. And now you're all over the place in different things. So I guess what have you found about evaluating these different models and those challenges?
I mean, I think the key for athletes that want to be successful is two things. First, they need to be very disciplined about picking out good investments. And second, they need great people around them. I mean, LeBron James has Maverick Carter, Kevin Durant has Rich Kleiman, Conor McGregor has a guy named Audi Attar. And more than just having that right-hand man that you can trust, these athletes are super famous and they can use that fame to get into meetings and have access to super successful business people. Like you mentioned, Michael Ovitz. He's the co-founder of CAA. He's not just taking meetings with every Joe Schmo, right? But Magic Johnson, Michael Ovitz is already going and sitting courtside at Lakers games, and he's a fan of Magic Johnson's, right? So he's able to use that access to then pick his brain and eventually win him over and make him into a mentor. So I think these athletes have an opportunity to get these kind of like free master classes in business from some of the smartest and most successful people in the world, if they're humble about it and they want to learn. I think in a lot of cases, I've talked to some of these business people and they know right away whether a guy is serious and whether a guy, wants to learn from them or just wants, life hacks to making lots of money. Right. But in the cases of these guys who have made it to that billionaire club or are well on their way, they've been able to build these networks of really successful people who have that industry knowledge, that who have specific to these different businesses.
Well, Matt, fantastic and fascinating. Really, I'm hoping to see Doug Glanville on your list at some point, but I think ways away. Matt, sports money, right up your alley, and so much insight you've shared with us. So to get a better understanding of this trend, and it's been absolutely fascinating. So thanks for taking the time.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, very fortunate to have our next guest. This is a former teammate of mine in Texas, the champion Texas Rangers actually at this time. Mark Teixeira played many years in the major leagues, a Gold Glove Award winner, champion on so many different levels. And I had the honor of being in Texas when he came up in his rookie debut. So we go way back. But Mark is here in part because he's got an entrepreneurial spirit and doing great work in business. So Mark, I want to welcome you to the show.
Great to be here, Doug. Thanks for having me.
So Mark, we're so fascinated about how athletes have made transitions, certainly off the field, but even during their playing days, they're embracing this entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm curious where it started for you.
For me, it really started when I signed with the New York Yankees. I was, basically halfway through my career. And the first part of my career, as you know, it's so hard to get your footing in Major League Baseball. So I was just focused on the game. But when I moved to New York, you start meeting new people. It's the center of the world, right? And you start meeting people that are doing some really interesting things. And being a New York Yankee, they're asking you to be a part of it. Whether that's, show up to an event, whether that's help launch a product, invest in something. I'm meeting some of the best investors in the world. And so that's really when the entrepreneurial spirit started coming up.
Well, Mark, we'll talk about that shift because, once you were in New York, you certainly have so much more to balance. What was it like to kind of get this curiosity sparked, which is sort of life beyond the game, but at the same time, navigate New York and perform at the level that you did?
Well, it wasn't easy. First of all, playing in New York is tough. That being said, I felt that going after business opportunities, it helped balance my life out. It helped me it took some pressure off of every single day is about baseball and every single day is about trying to get better. Well, yes, I was doing that, but I needed some sort of release. And I felt like that balance was healthy for me.
Well, and this sort of comes together around, one thing that you've kind of created from this experience is Tex and Company. And first of all, I love the motto, doing good business. I mean, so every time I say it, I'm like, that is like genius, first of all. But, so this comes together. I guess, can you give me the sort of, how this sort of germinated to become what it is, and then like what you're doing with it?
Yes. So the reason I put together the business is I had a lot of different opportunities and I needed to figure out how to sort them out. Right. And so you're in New York. It seemed like every week I was getting an email or a phone call, hey, can you invest in this? Can you help me partner with this? We're launching this product. And my filter was, I wanted to be a part of businesses that were run by good people, that were creating something special for people, creating something that was a positive. So Tex and Company is my holding company, and all of the businesses that I'm either partners in or invest in kind of run through that.
Coming up, we follow the money. Is the salary explosion in sports making it easier for athletes to become moguls? We explore with Mark Teixeira on Classes in Session with Doug Glanville, presented by UI Health. Welcome back to Classes in Session with Doug Glanville, presented by UI Health, and our conversation with Mark Teixeira. Talk about the selection process of like how to partner. I'm curious how challenging that can be, because you're evaluating things that have very different market models and deliverables and all these things. How do you sift through that, and what expertise do you lean on?
I invest and I partner with people. I think that is the businesses that smart people, talented people are running or starting. I don't want to say it's secondary, but the people are the most important. So I say I invest in people, and if they happen to be doing good business, then I'm in. I'm not an expert in anything. People ask me, "Hey, Mark, what are you good at?" Well, I was good at hitting a baseball, and I was better than most people in the world hitting a baseball. And because of that, I've learned that when you follow good people, when you follow smart people, if you invest with them, chances are you're going to be successful.
Well, and you mentioned the good people about investing, maybe their businesses, but how about the close circle, sort of the inner circle of your team? How did that come about? Because that's the ultimate trust circle, right? You can't do anything without that good team. And certainly you had great experiences as a ball player to kind of understand that value inherently.
This is the tough thing with athletes, is that you have so many people pulling on you. And for me, out of high school, I had a financial advisor waiting. And family friend, my dad was a mentor, still is a mentor of mine. I've been with them since since I signed my first contract. And the first dollar that I made was invested through this group. And that circle has stayed very small.
And so once you felt this level of confidence with that inner circle, that team, I'm wondering, how that may have impacted how you viewed the sort of end of your career.
Well, you don't think about retiring until you have your first major injury. And that's the truth. You think you're going to be bulletproof, think you're going to play for 25 years and, be the greatest player ever. I got in 2013, which would have been my 11th season in the big leagues. I tore my wrist. And when you have that time off, when you're in a cast and you're just kind of hanging out at home during the summer, you start thinking about your future. And so that was the first time I started thinking about what I wanted to do post-career. Investing isn't as exciting as playing for the New York Yankees, or the Chicago Cubs or the Texas Rangers, right? That being said, there's fulfillment in building something and selling it. We had a huge exit. We had a real estate deal that I worked a long time on, put a lot of my own capital, a lot of my own, time and energy into, and we sold it to Microsoft, a huge transaction. That closing was almost like when you win the World Series, because you've worked so hard. You have a team, you have highs and lows. It's not as exciting as playing baseball, but on the good days, it can be pretty close.
But I am curious about you're watching a lot of athletes now, like Magic Johnson and Tiger Woods and LeBron, there's so many talented athletes that are really taking this entrepreneurial spirit to this incredible level. They're kind of outpacing their already on-field greatness. I guess, what do you see when you see these athletes doing so well in that space?
He is super excited about the future of athletics and entrepreneurship, right? Because it used to be the old model, and we know a lot of Hall of Famers that are older than us, that kind of came the generation before us. The old model was you play your sport and you're done, and the rest of your career you kind of sign autographs, or you may be a coach, and you just hang on to your playing career. What people like Magic, Michael Jordan, LeBron, you mentioned all these, Tiger, obviously, they've realized that their greatness on the field can put them in a position to be exceptional partners for business. They understand that their greatness have put them in that position. But the reason that they're so smart is they know when to use their own money. They know what type of deals to get into. These guys are on the next level.
Well, Mark Teixeira, I really want to thank you for taking time today to just share your journey, man. And obviously, team of yours, proud of what you're doing. It was always a great time playing with you and covering you. And to just see you rise up and show that there's so much more to the world as an athlete than what you do on the field. So I wish you continued success and keep in touch.
Thank you, Doug. Just following your lead, man.
The billionaire athlete is here, and we are seeing the power of what they can command off the court. There was a time when it was frowned upon to have different interests, different ventures that may distract the star athlete from their day job. Now it is expected that athletes represent a whole host of interests, brands, networks, and streams of revenue. This allows fans to not only enjoy their performance on the court, but engage them when the game ends through their network or in the purchase of their products. The Billionaires Club for Athletes is poised to grow as the ways to make money continue to diversify, be it geographically or in varying business models. In the end, these athletes and their familiarity with building teams is a key advantage in their success, surrounded by expertise and a trusted inner circle. With that, they are already halfway there and halfway to the bank. I'll see you in class.